This is Bill Shelton of the Michigan Golfer visiting with Skip DeWal and Brent Marshall from Clock Tower Press, and we're talking about interesting books for the reading this year. And one of the books is very interesting and a little bit unusual for the Clock Tower Press and formerly Sleeping Bear Press. Take Dead Aim, a novel by Don Wade. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, it's quite an interesting story, and I think Don Wade obviously is one of the great golf writers in the country. Formerly, he was a senior editor at Golf Digest for a number of years, and he wrote a whole series of books that were very popular out there. So Don knows the game of golf and the tour exceptionally well. What he's written, I think, is an interesting story about a fragmented group of the Irish Republican Army who is out to break up political talks between the British government and the Northern Ireland government to get a satisfactory ruling over there. And so the number one ranked golfer in the world is British. And so the IRA plans to assassinate this golfer. Well, they're playing the American tour, and the whole tournament story starts at the LA Open, which now has been the Nissan Open of recent years at Riviera Country Club. And the book culminates at Augusta National and the Masters. So the storyline ends at one of the major championships in the spring. And what happens a little bit, just a feel, they miss the first assassination attempt. They kill a caddy. They can't quite figure out who the target is because there's also a minority player involved. And the book came out in March of 2001. And when the September 11th of 2001, the book came out in March of 2002, that we had a different title for the book. And September 11th changed the way we perceived the book coming out into the industry. The original title was Terror on Tour. And much like the film industry, we felt like that title would not be a good title to have.
The Michigan golfer Cameras had a chance to talk to Don Wade recently. Let's hear what Don had to say about his book.
Take Dead Aim is a political espionage thriller that's set in the context of the PGA Tour. The outline of the story is that a rogue element of the Irish Republican Army decides to try to interrupt and break up the peace talks between the British Unionist and the Dublin government by assassinating the world's best golfer, who happens to be British, at a tournament live on television in the United States. The first attempt fails, and the story traces two heroes. One is a young CIA agent, about 50 years old, and his counterpart is a female agent from British intelligence, MI6. And they track down the assassin, and the story culminates at the Masters. The book evolved over a period of years. I had worked as an editor at Golf Digest and covered a lot of tournaments, and I've always been interested in politics, and so the story as it evolved took on more of a political theme than just a golf theme. And then of course the characters evolved. They had a relationship between the CIA agent and his counterpart in MI6, and that was interesting. I think the people who read it will be people who, first of all, are attracted to a story about golf, but it will also appeal to people who are interested in politics, and obviously in the aftermath of September 11th, it will appeal to people who are interested in current events as well. And one thing this book does is it takes readers behind the scene into what it's like to cover a tour, what it's like to be in the media room, what it's like to cover the event as a writer, what the players are like, what the tour officials are like, what television is like, what goes on behind the scenes when CBS is covering the Masters or NBC is covering the Players' Championship. So the story works on a lot of different levels, and everyone who's read it so far has really enjoyed it.
That was Don Wade talking about his new novel, Take Dead Aim, from the Clock Tower Press. Skip, novels, as we've talked about, somehow a difficult, kind of a risky kind of thing in the golf business, but this one looks like it's got great potential.
It's a great book and a well-known author, and that's what it takes. We've done several. The good stories are the ones that survive. It's a tough marketplace for fiction out there.
If you want some enjoyable reading about golf and also some suspense, read Don Wade's take dead aim.